Hello, Storm Riders. It's the Storm Rider. Riding the storm with you. Thank you for riding the storm with me. All right. I'm excited to bring with you a new story from my life. And this one is going to be very strange. But I think it's going to be funny. I think it's funny. And this is real. This is true. So, first of all, this is the Storm Rider podcast. And I want to invite you all to subscribe to my podcast. And also, you can check out my Substack on thestormwriter.substack.com. And this is what I'm working on now. I try to just tell stories from my life and share artwork from my past in an effort to reveal more and more and more of who I am. Whereas I feel like in the past 10 years, I've been trying to hide things that I find valuable about myself or hide things that are special about myself, like my recovery, my program, my therapy, um, all the things, Tai Chi, meditation, a lot of people, my spirituality. A lot of people didn't know all the things I was doing in my life. And I just thought, it's time to start sharing. So this is what I'm doing. You can like and subscribe to my blog on Substack at thestormwriter.substack.com. And you can comment. You can let me know what you think of the story. And that's it. And you can always get in touch with me as well. All right. The story comes from, I think, the year 2000. Actually, I got so many good stories from that year. What a year. Okay. The story comes from the year 2000. And I'm going to start right now. I don't have a title. Looking back on my history, there's one event that stands out as a strange foreshadowing of the future and the battle I would face with being misunderstood and mislabeled. Back when I was in my 20s, before any of the rumors had started, I had a chance to come face to face with one of the most hated men in Boston's history. Back in 2002, I lived in Allston, in an artsy, punky, pre-hipster neighborhood of Boston. I lived in Allston, an artsy, punky, pre-hipster neighborhood of Boston, where the rent was sort of cheap, but getting higher every year. Allston had amazing bars and nightclubs, and there were no fucking cell phones with cameras back then. So people just had way more fun drinking and smoking in bars than they do now, because they actually spent time talking to each other and making jokes. I lived in a 5-bedroom apartment in Allston, and I indeed had 4 roommates. We were a motley crew. Don was goth, Nick was a nerd with a thick accent from down south, one of the Carolinas. Ben was a kind but very unkempt tech guy from Braintree who saw the sun about as often as a vampire. Then there was Ethan, the boyfriend of one of my best friends at the time, and there was me, the Egyptian American guy. We didn't exactly gel with each other, but we had a good time. I commuted to Wheaton to attend classes 4 days a week, so I would be there 4 nights a week crashing on couches, followed by spending Thursday to Sunday night sleeping in my room in my apartment in Boston. That's how I spent my senior year. I was working with gourmet caterers part-time to pay for rent and expenses. Working for gourmet caterers meant putting on a waitstaff uniform and showing up to different events all over the state. Sometimes I took the subway, other times I carpooled with someone, and we would often arrive hours before the event to help with setup, planning, and we rarely knew what the event was for. We often knew whether it was a wedding or a banquet, but never the details or the guest list. The weirdest thing about working for gourmet was the uniform. You had to wear black pants, not dark blue, not brown, but you had to be able to move in them, of course. You had to wear black shoes, and I only had dress shoes in black leather. I had no black work shoes. You had to wear this bleached white shirt, and for the top, instead of buttons, you had to use cuff studs, which look like little cuff links, but for shirts and for the buttonholes in shirts. The shirt was a tuxedo shirt, and we had cummerbunds too. We had to wear those. We had to look really nice for people making $16 an hour minus tax. I want to say that again. We had to look really nice for people making $16 an hour minus tax. That's how it should be said. One evening, I was scheduled to work a catering event on the Boston College campus. I was just 22, so I remember too little about the location. I remember we were in some type of old hall, and there were a lot of large round tables for sitting, and there was a large number of attendees, probably 200. I don't remember whether it was men or women or just men. I don't remember the ages, but I remember working the event, and we reached a point in the dinner service. There was something going on. There was a bit of a commotion, and some of my coworkers said they wouldn't serve a certain person. There was a refusal. The chef called out, "All right, table 6 is still waiting on their main course. Who's taking this one?" I noticed a strange silence. A few of the waiters exchanged glances, but no one moved. A red-headed guy next to me yells, "Not me." A young blonde lady mutters under her breath, "I'm not serving him. No way." I stare at my coworkers, thinking they've all suddenly become lazy. What's the problem? "That's Cardinal Law," says the redhead. "So, who's that?" The chef raises an eyebrow. "You don't know?" The blondie, "That's Cardinal Law from the news." She stresses the news as if I'm supposed to know what she's talking about. The cover-ups, he's the guy. So the word cover-up didn't really click for me. I think I might not have known what a cover-up even was at that time. It's a phrasal verb that's very particular to the States and to that region and time. Being in English schools in Egypt for most of my education, I doubt I'd used or heard the word. So I thought to myself, I'm from Egypt, goddammit. I don't know every Boston thing that all you guys know. What's a cover-up, you know? Anyways, having no idea what they meant by cover-up and not really caring that much, I shrugged. I said to them, "Well, someone's got to do it. I'll take the plate." There was a deafening silence as the other waiters exchanged glances. The chef raised his brows again and tilted his head, saying, "Well, you do you," as he handed the plate. "All right then, kid, good luck." I walked across the room, immune to the heavy silence around the table, and I placed the table in front of the man, bowing slightly, out of habit, and I had to lower myself gently to lay the plate on the table in front of him. "Here's your dinner, sir," I said. He looks at me with an unreadable expression. He seemed calm, polite, but also distant. "Thank you," he said, and he nodded. "No problem." I hesitated and wondered if I should say something. Who is this guy anyways? Why is he so important? Why is it so quiet in here? Feeling the somber tone in the room, I hesitated. I wanted to say more, but every eye in the room was on myself and the cardinal. The awkward tension pushed me to move, and I took my leave, going back to the prep room. "Do you know who that was?" "Not really," I said. "Then why'd you serve that guy?" Another waiter said while walking up to me. "But he's a dinner guest at the event. We have to serve him." "That's Cardinal Law from the Archdiocese of Boston." I want you to know that the word archdiocese was not in my lexicon at this age, at that time, being where I was from. Again, another Massachusetts word that means absolutely nothing to me. Even now, I'm not really sure what an archdiocese is. They may as well have been speaking Gaelic. That year, I would hear that word a lot. That year, I would hear that word, archdiocese, a lot. I would also figure out at some point that Law was his name and not a part of his profession. He was not a Cardinal Law, which is not a special kind of cardinal. He was just Bernard Law, Cardinal Bernard Law. I don't know who he is, but all I see is an older man that needs to eat. So if y'all aren't going to get him his food, then I will. That's what I said to the room of sweaty waiters as they were at the end of their shift. As you can plainly see, I'm not Catholic, I'm Muslim, I added. I felt that all the stuff that's happening, whatever it wasn't my stuff, it was their stuff. I was just serving food. This wasn't my fight, it wasn't my culture, community, or my concern. All I knew is that everyone had to eat, so someone had to deliver this plate. And so I did. At that time, I didn't know Cardinal Law from Adam. I didn't know anything about the Catholic priest scandal. I wasn't a Roman Catholic, and I wasn't in that world. So I hadn't heard anything about the allegations in the news. I spent most of my time and energy finishing my degree and completing my art projects for my final show in the art studio program at Wheaton. My job at Gourmet was just about pocketing some extra money. In 2002, I was 4 years out of the Arab metropolis in which I grew up. I wasn't Irish, I wasn't Catholic, and I sure as hell wasn't white American. And I didn't even know what an altar boy was at that time. The only thing I knew about Catholics came from the Dominican nuns I used to hang out with as a child back in Racine, Wisconsin. And they were awesome. They used to take me apple picking, since Sister Bernadette lived on a farm back when she was a child. Wisconsin was full of farms, and I distinctly remember hopping into the passenger seat of an old sky blue GMC pickup truck and riding with her over to the local farm where we'd pick apples. In the back of the truck were those little wooden baskets that you bring with you to pick fruit on a farm. Even though it was the 80s, Wisconsin was still a classic, with real wooden apple baskets for everyday use. My brother was 4 years younger than me, so he never got to do the fun stuff that I used to do in Wisconsin with Sister Bernadette. I was raised by nuns in Wisconsin, who looked after me almost every day in the summers when we would come back to the States to visit. Even though I was Muslim, my parents were super liberal and super pluralistic, so they loved the idea of me being taken care of by a Catholic Dominican nun. Sister Bernadette taught me to be creative. She always had a craft basket or box with her filled with glue, scissors, colored paper, even colored felt. She also had markers and crayons for me. My parents didn't know what to do with me or how to get me engaged in a task, but Sister Bernadette was different. She was always prepared for caregiving and engaging children's minds. I'm grateful for her example because it reminded me of the kind of engagement I would want my children in schools to have in the classroom. Because of my experiences in Wisconsin as a small child, I felt that priests and nuns could do no wrong. It's important to understand that while I didn't know anything about Catholicism, I did know what Christianity was. To me, Christians were people who lived on farms, drove pickup trucks, and picked their own apples. They were people who built things themselves. My time in Wisconsin as a child taught me how to enjoy nature, how to be creative, and how to be constructive. It protected me from the blind obsession with business and money and success that afflicted others in my family. It did not teach me anything about being Catholic per se, which is why this whole scandal was Greek to me. Later, I would join sex addiction groups, anonymous meeting groups, that were full of Irish Catholics in the Boston area. And they would talk about growing up in that world, their Irish Catholic East Coast world. They would talk about being altar boys, and occasionally they'd mention the scandal. To this day, even my fellow addicts never heard the story of me serving Cardinal Law. It's pretty funny, actually, considering how much I've shared with them in anonymous recovery rooms, in the basements of churches, or the ground floors of churches, or in the educational centers attached to churches. When we discovered when I discovered the anonymous groups, the meetings were full of Irish Catholics from the Boston area. Some of them were gay men who recently came out and had to acknowledge the child abuse that they had suffered from in their childhood. One time, and this is true, our regular room wasn't available for our meetings. So we had to meet in one of the children's classrooms in a church, after hours, of course, at about 8 p.m. So that day, there were about 8 or 10 men between the ages of 30 and 60 sitting in a children's classroom in a church after hours, talking about our addictions, our emotions, and our problems. We sat on chairs way too small for us, where at tables where small children would learn to read. You have to. There's a joke in here about the inner child, right? About the metaphor of the inner child, but I don't know what the joke is. I wish I had recalled the Cardinal Law story at least one time when I was in the rooms with other addicts all those years later, because they would have gotten a real kick out of that story. They didn't like Cardinal Law or anything like that, but they probably would have been fascinated with my hapless encounter with such a huge part of Boston's history. And that's the end of the story, I think. After the event was over, things were kind of quiet but routine. Once we had cleaned up and closed the event, I left along with everybody else, and I was walking towards the T at Boston College, and a college girl, maybe a year younger than me, was walking in the same direction. She was blonde and pale, so she must have been Irish Catholic or a Boston native. She clearly wasn't one of the Mediterranean-looking types. She was of northern stock, with skin that definitely turns red in the sun. As we walked along the stony wall towards the T station, I noticed her glancing at me. First, I ignored it, and then I figured she was just lost in thought. But after the third or fourth time, I turned my head and saw her staring, and caught her staring. "What's up?" I asked. "Are you going to the Boston College stop?" "Yeah." "Me too. I live in Allston, so I have to catch the train from there." She wore a light windbreaker with the zipper open and her waitstaff uniform under. "It's freezing today. How are you not wearing a heavy jacket?" She shook her shoulders, half smiled, playing at the corner of her lips. "I don't know. I just don't really get cold here. Besides, it's a short walk." "It's like 10 minutes. It's too cold for me. I'm not used to the winters here." "I can't believe you served Cardinal Law," she said. "Someone had to." I looked at her. Should I have done something else? And if I didn't serve him, who was going to get him his food? "I don't know," she quipped, keeping pace with me. I'm walking a little bit ahead of her. "But you could have refused, like the rest of us." "Didn't you hear about what happened in the news?" I sighed, slowing down so she could catch up with me. "Not really. I mean, they just told me he did something bad, but I don't get what he did. You know, I'm not from here. I'm not part of this whole thing, whatever it is. I'm not Catholic, and I'm not American. Well, I am. But I'm not from Boston." "Okay, yeah, I can kind of see that. Where are you from?" "Well, I grew up partly in the States, but also in Egypt, and I went to high school there." As she's taking in my perspective, I interrupt her thoughts. "What did he do anyways? I know he's involved in the scandal, but I don't understand what he did." "Well," she looks away, she shoves her hands deeper into her pockets of her coat. She says, "Well, there's the Archdiocese of Boston child abuse scandal." Again, a Catholic word I don't understand. "Did he molest a kid?" My eyes went wide. "Well, no. Some other priest did, but he moved the priests around." I'm trying to connect the dots. Was he supposed to do that? Well, yeah, no. He moved the priests around so they wouldn't get caught. So, oh, so it's his fault that happened. What happened with the priests? Yeah, basically. Well, sort of. He protected what the priests were doing. He protected the priests that were doing it. Well, that's terrible. Did he get arrested? She gives me a look that says no. She doesn't even have to shake her head. Why not? Are they going to arrest him? I don't know, she said. Do you know why they didn't arrest him? No idea. We'll have to wait and see. Here in Egypt, we think of America as the land of justice and the land of clear rules. I have Egyptians who come up to me all this time and ask me questions about America and ask me why, if I was being attacked, I didn't use the legal system. But I serve you this example. There I was in America, and there was a breakdown in the law. No clear rules, no clear justice, no clear consequences, just like anywhere else. You really don't understand who he is, she says. No, I thought law was just a weird title. That made her laugh. She really laughed this time. Oh my God. I grinned, mocking her. Yeah, oh my God. I didn't understand who Cardinal Law was. I didn't know what he meant to Boston, and I didn't understand what Catholicism even meant to people like her. Even though I walked and talked American, I wasn't familiar with this Boston Irish Catholic culture and its history in Boston. I thought about this for a moment as I glanced at the distant glow of the station getting colder. She said to me, I get that you're not from here, but you have to understand this stuff. It's just that he doesn't deserve kindness. Without thinking, I answered, even the worst people deserve kindness. We all deserve kindness, especially when we don't fully understand what happened or why it happened. It sounds like information is still coming out, and we don't know what we'll learn. Our conversation didn't thaw the distance between us. It only served to illuminate the divide between this Irish Catholic child of Boston who'd just been betrayed by everything she was taught to believe in, and an outsider who comprehended absolutely none of it. She said, I don't know if I agree with that. I smirked slightly, stealing a glance at her. You don't have to. Have you ever had a chat with someone from Egypt before? You can find out if we all live in pyramids, and I can tell you about the camels we all ride to school every day. She said, I bet you sleep in those boxes like King Tut. Nah, only my grandma and grandpa, actually. Come get a drink with me and I'll tell you about the pyramids. I know a good bar on Harvard Ave. Do you know Great Scott? That's not on Harvard Ave, but yeah, I know it. You know what I mean. It's around there. How about one drink? Okay, one drink. Don't be a jerk, okay? Oh, come on. What does that even mean? Well, that's my story for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. This is The Storm Writer, and my Substack is thestormwriter.substack.com. And I'm going to try to do the podcast once a week. I'm going to try to post out on my newsletter, post stories and essays about twice a week. I'm working as hard as I can for something which is purely for your entertainment, and I don't even know why I'm doing this, except that I feel the need to unfold real stories from my life. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for your attention, and I would love to hear from you. So get on the blog and let me know what you think if you enjoyed it. Have a great day and see you next time.